Welcome back. Today's not a whiteboard edition as far as any kind of performance modifications that you can do or understanding the natural aspiration of engines or superchargers, so on and so forth. But the question that I'm going to start this video out with is something that each individual is going to have to answer for themselves. So it's not me directing you towards any product or trying to give you a sales pitch. Okay. Here's the question. When is too fast? Too fast. We all know that you could go as fast as your pockets are as deep. Okay? That is the number one rule in racing. You can go as fast as you can afford to go. Even if it's to the point where you can't do the work, you can pay somebody else to do the modifications or even build the car for you. Now, the reason for this video is I've been seeing some things over the last couple of years, mainly the last 5 years over YouTube, and some of the practices within performance. We all know that if you go to YouTube and type in Mustang crashing, you're going to see hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of individuals leaving car shows or trying to do burnouts of Mustang drivers crashing. Now, there's other manufacturers and other type of cars that are crashing, but when is too much power beyond your capabilities? Now, in addition to that, this last weekend, so it's June 5th, or excuse me, May, almost lost track there. This last weekend at the War in the Woods drag racing event, a motorcyclist nearly lost his life. As a matter of fact, he's under care right now, going through multiple surgeries. He's in intensive care. Now, that was just one occurrence of an accident happening with a motorcyclist. But over the weekend, there was 5 cars that had to be hauled off of the track to the point where the safety equipment on the vehicle protected the drivers from losing their lives. Very famous street outlaw racers have been put in wheelchairs on that very same track. So going across social media right now, I see all the individuals with all their cell phones out recording the events with the motorcyclists. But YouTube channels like 1320, the Track Star, so on and so forth, they have unlimited data, content to create accidents occurring just at that one track. Now, for those of you that don't know the layout of that track, the starting line width of the lanes is approximately 16 feet. In between the lanes, through approximately the 300-foot mark, there's actually grass in between the lanes of the drag strip. From the outside edge of the blacktop or the strip itself to the barrier is only about another 5 feet. Now, when large events occur with, like they say, the Street Outlaws or big tire, small tire events, the crowd is allowed to stand in between the car and the barrier. Okay? Now, throughout the years of racing, whether it be circle track, drag racing, or on the street, I know the limitations of what the pavement can handle. I have reached the point where the performance that I can build into the cars can exceed the speed of the pavement. And that's not talking about, obviously within street racing, the local speed limits. Growing up, from the time even before I got my driver's license through approximately my 30s, I didn't have a ounce of fear in me. As long as I could go faster and beat the other guy. And it was to the point when the cars got so fast, going out to BFE Egypt and running a heads-up race for cash or for just a simple bet, at what level did I notice that things started to become truly unsafe? So throughout the last couple of content videos, I talked about the camera engines, the Ford faults compared to other manufacturers. Uncle Tony's Garage has followed up with doing a session with the 426 Hemi in a big block, separating itself from the Ford power plants. No matter what YouTube channel you follow along with, or the type of racing they're doing, there is safety involved. For any of you that are in NASCAR, you know the circle track racing rule books were written based upon accidents that occurred. Whether it's the neck restraints because of the accident with Dale Earnhardt, to barrier and fencing to protect the crowd, because cars did launch and get into the crowd where it took lives of spectators. Rules have been changed to adapt to the amount of accidents that we have. But the track for War in the Woods has never been updated. Well, I take that back. This year they put on a second level of barricade through approximately that 600-foot mark. After that, it's 40-inch high concrete blocks. This last weekend, even to the point where a car slammed into the barricade and actually slid and grinded, okay, if you're a skateboarder, grinded across the concrete slabs, causing the car to burst into flames. One of multiple accidents that occurred over this last weekend. Now I'm all about going fast, okay? Like I said, through my 30s, it was no matter what situation I was in, it was always about going as fast as I possibly can and beating the other guy. It was the thrill, the adrenaline rush. But it came to the point where I started losing friends. And it even restricted the amount of circle track racing, the level that I went to. Because again, you can go as fast as deep as your pockets are. But if you're not willing to travel and spend thousands and thousands of dollars every single week between the races to buy fresh tires, fix or replace parts that might be broken or out of date for rules and regulations, it made me question myself for the last week since the last video of what point within my performance experience in my life of 47 years, at what point was it more fun than it actually cost? And when did the cost become work? When is too fast too fast? Now, the Ford adage that I use is that guys that go out and buy these, fancy newer cars, whether it be from any of the three American manufacturers or even some of the foreign, turbocharged competitors, whether it be a Nissan NSX or Skyline, something that's pushing 300 horsepower or more. You put that type of performance in a car, and the level of speed that it takes to become really dangerous gets extended. But when you are on two wheels, like a motorcycle, or even a three-wheeler, those speeds that can be attained when it becomes dangerous is much lower. So by having motorcycles, even modern day crotch rockets are getting 130 plus horsepower and a 300 to 500 pound package, including the rider, you can easily achieve that 10-second range. You don't have to turn any wrenches to the factory designs that can accomplish that kind of power and speed. They're inherently very dangerous. Now, I have to admit, the first time that I achieved 200 miles an hour was on two wheels. And living in the southeastern part of the United States at the time, in Virginia and Tennessee, the roads were designed for that type of motorcycle to an extent. The roads are not as cracked up and full of potholes and stuff like that than there are around the Great Lakes region. A lot more cruiser bikes, a lot more Harleys find their way into the Great Lakes region. They're not out there setting top speed times. But you see some of these kids, or even some of the older adults on two wheels, factory bought performance, hitting the roads every single day. If you look nationwide, there is an accident that claims a life. You can say the same thing about cars, but if you can imagine the amount of cars that are on the roads and highways, the amount of accidents where life is not taken. Now again, an accumulation of my entire thought process over this week is basically, when does going fast become dangerous? And how does that equate to your typical do-it-yourselfer that might be building a car to go fast or to enjoy? This is going to just be my personal opinion after my life experience of being able to go as low 8 seconds, over 200 miles an hour on 2 wheels or 4, and even achieving 170 miles an hour on a snowmobile. When does it become too much? Now, gradually, as I grew up, I went faster and faster and faster. So starting out with a bicycle or moving up to a motorized lawnmower to go-karts to the mini bikes. At what point did the power outweigh the enjoyment? Now, this is going to be different for each one of you. What I've noticed is that any of your factory component, factory design stuff, whether it be Ford, Chevy, or Chrysler, when modified to work off a natural aspiration, okay, with simple bolt-on components, whether it be headers, an intake, a cam, even after doing some of the molding and porting yourself to high stall converter transmissions, what I have found out in my life experience is once you start breaking that 1099 in a quarter mile, it becomes more work than it is fun. It becomes more expensive than the exchange of fun. Are you getting your entertainment values worth per dollar that's going into it? Now, circle track racing, to put a little twist on things, depending on if you're in pure stocks, where the only thing that's allowed to be done with the car is take out the glass and take out the original factory plastic, you can't modify the engines. You can still achieve on most tracks, 60 to 80 miles an hour. If you do lose control or come in with an impact of another vehicle, they were actually designed to be somewhat absorbent at that point. Even with roll cages installed, if the cars do flip over, they're safer than the cars that are meant to be going around the quarter mile around the circle track at 180 to 200 miles an hour. They're also derived to be more affordable to the individuals that have that fun experience without having to be a millionaire. Now, this is what I'm going to say about this, because after seeing all of the accidents and the years worth of danger that have presented itself at War of the Woods, to street racing where I've lost friends, to circle track racing realizing the rule book was actually written after the loss of life, okay? There's a reason why all the NASCAR racers are using the neck restraints now is because of the death of Dale Earnhardt. And just like half of the other rule book, it was written because of modifications done by Smokey Yunick. The rule books are constantly updated, not only because of the performance abilities in newer components, but also the safety aspect of it. When a track like War of the Woods has been allowed to operate this long without the insurances or the local municipality shutting them down, it's mind-boggling to me. Now, are these individuals going out there getting an adrenaline rush and racing for cash and testing the limits of the performance industry? You bet. But when is enough enough? So this video was brought up by a couple different things that happened in the last 2 weeks, or since the last video, with Tony Stewart winning his first Wally and drag racing, to Kyle Busch and the complaints that he's had with NASCAR, the Michael Jordan racing team from NASCAR. Again, these new generation cars, they're all built around the safety and the replacement ability. So if they do have a wreck, it's not taking out the whole car. They can just replace a section of the car, unless obviously it's a total amount where it affects the driver's compartment. To the debate with War of the Woods or the Ultimate Street Racers, the Oklahoma Street Racers, what is the maximum speed that you can achieve, or a maximum attended time that you can achieve before it becomes extremely dangerous? When does that danger bar go up? And how much horsepower determines that? Again, for a 300 to 500 pound crotch rocket or motorcycle, 130 horsepower is enough to obviously take your life. If you were to put that same engine in, say, a 5,000 pound truck, okay, that 130 horsepower is not as dangerous as it was when it's on two wheels. So for every individual, these limitations of speed is going to be different. Obviously, if you live in the mountains or if you're racing on dirt, depending on the track that you're racing at, the rules and regulations as far as safety equipment, at what point does the technology of the cars replace the driver's ability? And going back to the Ford adage of, all the Ford racers, Mustangs have been known for multiple years of individuals that have no business behind that kind of power output, getting into a car, trying to show off for their friends or for the crowd, and crashing the car. Now, before you get your underwear in a twist, drivers of all manufacturers are doing that, but the Mustangs is predictable. Okay, so sorry, Blue Oval guys. The individuals that buy instead of building have created a worse idea around the Mustang. Okay, and it goes through a lot of different Ford products. Even the Dodge Challenger. One incidence of where a convertible crashed in NASCAR, that car carried a very bad reputation for many years, even though it was considered to be a safer car. Just by removing the roof, the car opened itself to more danger. It wasn't, doing 200 miles an hour. It was enough to take a life. So I guess the whole entire purpose of this content or this video today, after my years of experience going extremely fast, I look at these guys doing 5 and 6 seconds now in the door slammers. They're along for the ride. They're not operating the car. They're releasing a button. The car does everything. I would say if I had to direct a younger individual or somebody first getting into the performance industry to do nothing but work with factory equipment, because at that point, even achieving maximum power from factory equipment in a platform that it was designed around, whether it be a Camaro, a Mustang, a Challenger, a Cuda, a Charger, an Impala, you name it, they were designed to work around the factory equipment to where you get the most enjoyment. It is about the driver's skill, the builder skill, the limitations of working with the components that the factory released. So, in my life experience, looking back and driving, multiple different vehicle types, whether it be a snowmobile, motorcycle, car, even airplanes, being able to be in control of the equipment, that was the fun part. It wasn't about just putting the shift selector in a drive and allowing the transmission to do it. It was to actually manually shift through the gears, using the clutch and brake and gas pedal at the same time, being able to steer into the corners and select gears, so on and so forth. Technology has taken the fun out of things. Yes, they're going a lot faster, especially with newer turbo and fuel injection units. But if you go back and even get a smaller vehicle, a 4-cylinder Nissan Skyline from the 1970s, no turbos, modified factory equipment, manual transmission, will provide more fun per dollar in a safe manner than what today's technology has allowed. And let's face it, folks, I'm going to say something right here to end the video that is beyond the truth. You cannot compare a generation that grew up with physical fitness in mind. Young individuals that were being raised to be ready for war, to go to war for their country, whether they're physical fitness tests in high school. You look at the thousands of individuals and the physique they had, the type of jobs, whether it be farmers or some kind of a physical labor job before all this technology came in. You look at the individuals of that same age today, and they do not have the life experience or the physical capabilities as previous generations. But yet our vehicles, our racing equipment has progressed to the point where it's 2 to 3 times more powerful. We're also seeing more deaths associated with performance. Tracks have to be increased. Now, I realize there's multiple tracks across the United States that are being closed down, whether it be circle track, asphalt, dirt, to drag racing. A lot of it comes down to development projects that are happening in the communities, to the actual insurance coverage that it requires to operate the tracks. It's making it to the point where it's unaffordable. There's no profit margin in it. The streets. Some of these individuals are turning to the streets to go racing, as they did in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. But the performance has allowed those vehicles to go so much faster that they have surpassed the danger zone. Let me be the first one to come out and say, something has to change in the mentality of our population when it comes to speed. Our NASCARs are completely designed around the speed they are going now. Our drag racing cars are not being restricted by speed, according to the rule books. And the tracks are not capable of handling the type of output that our newer vehicles are able to put out. But the number one thing that I've learned in my old years of age is that our drivers are getting less capable. Even individuals that have 30 years under their belt in professional racing situations can cause the death of a fellow racer because of their neglect. If they're not hurting themselves, they're hurting somebody else around them. So no matter how deep your pockets are and how fast you want to go, the elephant in the room is whether or not you can control that power when it's released. And if the pavement that you're racing on can handle that performance. So for those guys that are going to the War of the Woods that are defending the track, you will never you'll never win the debate whether or not that track should be shut down with me. That track should not be allowed to run the cars that they are at the performance levels. Is that track capable of running somewhat stock vehicles, say 12 or 13 second quarter mile cars? Yes, safely. But it's not going to be able to handle cars that are running 8 seconds. They're not. And I know of cars that have, especially with the street outlaws when they've raced there, every single run there's a close call if the cars aren't being totaled going down the strip. You take a novice, put them behind the wheel of a crotch rocket that didn't do anything but simple bolt-ons or whatever, expected to go out there and race and do it safely. He doesn't have the capabilities. And the track should see through that. The tracks are responsible for the safety of the drivers through their rules, regulations, and inspections. A lot of danger could be avoided if people start doing their jobs and realizing their limitations. Have a good one.